Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday Build. This is episode 1.32, and today we're going to be discussing the topic Scalable Tech Stack of a Solopreneur. What to use for your website and domain, your CRM, your LMS, your newsletter, your booking calendar, and more. Today we're going to be featuring some of my favorite tech, including Software, HubSpot, Calendly, Clio, Zapier, Gavel, and more. My name is Brittany Hernandez, and I am a lawyer, a veteran, a founder, and CEO. I also have a master's with distinction in international film business. I previously worked as a business development executive and partner engagement executive with a company called Vala. I'm also a Gavel expert and no-code, low-code developer, as well as the global ambassador to law schools for Gavel, formerly Documate. So, as I mentioned, we're just going to get straight into today's topic, which is around this idea of scalable tech for a solopreneur. So, let's break down some of these terms. The first of which is scalable. So, when we're thinking about what kind of tech we want to use in our practices or in our companies, we want to think about how this can grow with our business as we grow as a company. So, if we start off with a solution that maybe works for this particular time when we're doing a lot of manual one-to-one type of work, we're not going to be able to use that tech down the road when we're trying to scale to work with many different people with a particular product or tool. So we want something that can grow as we grow. So sometimes that looks like using a smaller plan for an enterprise piece of tech. So something like a CRM, like HubSpot, for example, is used by really massive companies as well as solo companies, where you have just a single founder, maybe somebody who has a couple of different people. So that's something that could scale with you, and you just pay along the plans that as you grow. When we talk about a tech stack, we're talking about how these different pieces of tech work in harmony together in order to accomplish some goal. So this would be, how can we harmonize how our different marketing efforts lead into our newsletters, which leads into our website, and so on. So we want this stack to work well together. When we talk about a solopreneur, we're talking about someone who is either working on their own or has a very small team. So this would be for somebody who is really considering things like price and not necessarily so much for somebody who has more than 200 employees, for example. They might have different needs than somebody who is working on their own. So when we talk about what we're going to use for our website and domain, our CRM, our LMS, and so on, we want to think first about, can we use something that is no code? So what that means is, can we find a solution that allows us to do everything that we want to do without having to hire a developer? This is really important when you're a solopreneur because you don't often have the funds to be able to hire on a team of developers. So all of the tools I'm going to be showing you will allow for a hybrid of a no-code and low-code approach, meaning that it's a no-code tool that has little pieces that allow you to add code into them if you need to or want to. So one of the ways that I like to think about how we can talk about a tech stack is starting with the beginning point of the user's journey. So this would be your end user or client, and then following that journey along the way and understanding which tech can be used to solve different problems along that journey for you internally and for them as your end user or customer. So for any business that you're in, it's going to be whether you're a lawyer or you're doing something else, selling widgets, for example, then what you're going to be focusing on is, what is that initial starting point? How are they finding you? So this can be things like on a social media platform. This can be in different forums. This could be in lots of different places. Let's say that you're online and you're on a different social media platform. Let's say in my case, my platform where a lot of my different users are going to be is LinkedIn. So let's say that this is the start of my user journey. So for this particular section, I would want to think about, how can I attract customers or leads to my business from this platform? So this would be things that help me to create marketing materials. Things like Canva, for example, would be one of my first ways of attracting different customers through graphics. So one example of this could be my plan here that you can see that I use this for lots of different things, for making different background designs, for making the covers for my thumbnails, for my videos, and so on. In this particular one here, I've made just a very clear call out that I have a course and that people can get certified. We have this many live sessions, and this is from a template that is in Canva. So what's nice about Canva as well is that Canva has a fully free plan. So I always look for when I'm trying to figure out a tech stack for a solopreneur is how can we make it to where this person's stack can be as inexpensive as possible, while at the same time satisfying that point we made earlier about the ability to scale as we grow. So going from a one-person company with a low number of clients all the way to maybe growing to a bigger company with many, many different clients. So I'd say Canva is my starting point for anything related to design, and you can start with that free plan. I pay for one because I like the ability to use some of the different premium features, but you can definitely do a lot with the free plan. The other piece of tech that I use a lot is Vimeo. So I use this for recording this video right now. I record all of my different lesson plans, my courses, all of my marketing material comes through Vimeo. The reason for this is it has a very good Chrome extension as well. So you can see here that there's a little stop sign here and my little bar across here. So this is all through Vimeo Record, which links straight into your Vimeo account and allows you to use your videos in many different ways. So you can set different privacy settings. You can also publish to socials across different platforms. So let's say I want to take this video and I want to have it also simultaneously posted on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Shopify, or TikTok for Business. You can just click all of these different ones and it's going to publish all those across to those different places with the description and title that you give it. What's great about Vimeo is they also have a free plan, and that can grow with you as you need more video space, as you need more integrations. One of the key things about Vimeo, if we go into our settings over here, so if we go to our accounts and come down to settings, and we check out here on the left, what we are able to see is that we can go into some different things like marketing, and we can have this particular Vimeo account synced to our other accounts like MailChimp, HubSpot, Marketo, and all of these different ones here. So that's super, super helpful because it makes it to where everything is harmonized across all of our different platforms. In this case, I have this particular Vimeo account connected to my MailChimp account, which is where I have all of my newsletters coming from. And aside from the user journey itself, when we're considering how we want to put tech together, we do also want to consider how each tech can integrate with another piece of tech within our stack. So in this case, it's really important that I know which different pieces of integrations can be used with Vimeo, for example. So that will help me to decide whether I use something like a MailChimp or a HubSpot or something else. And it actually weighs very heavily in my purchasing decision whether or not it has an integration that I need. Another huge consideration when I'm considering whether I'm going to purchase a piece of tech or use it at all is the price. So as I mentioned, many of the ones that I'm going to recommend today all have free tiers or at least a free trial. As I mentioned earlier, another consideration is the ability to scale. So that's that ability to go from a one-person company all the way to a 200-person plus company, and that same system to be able to grow with you all the way through. Another thing I consider when I'm thinking about tech at any level of my stack is whether I need to change or transfer in the future and how easy is it for me to do that. So we wouldn't want to have to do that. One thing I also consider is whether I want to have something siloed from other tech or if I want it to all be synced or all in one. So for example, maybe HubSpot has 10 things that I want, but one thing that I don't have doesn't have one thing that I want. So then I would have to have a separate system. So how can I make sure that that separate system is integrated within the platform that is my all-in-one single source of truth? So when we think about that synchronized single source of truth that is synced across our other platforms, we want to consider this piece around integrations as well. One thing around whether you want something siloed or not as well is whether you would want the ability to make a decision down the road that you don't want to use one piece of your stack anymore, and you wouldn't have to untangle it all the way from something else. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you have HubSpot, but maybe you use, because it has the ability to do a newsletter, for example, do you want to have that be your newsletter platform? Or do you want to have a separate system where MailChimp handles that versus HubSpot to have the ability to take off one or the other in the future? So you can go through more of a siloed perspective at first, or you can have it all integrated. So let's say you have, even though you have a separate system, which is MailChimp, for example, you can have that integrate with a HubSpot, for example, and then instead of or you can have it to where instead of those being separated and siloed from each other, you can have it be all in one. Now, one thing I would say is that HubSpot is on the rise as far as being something that you'll see everywhere, but MailChimp is still something that is integrated more often, I'd say, than I see HubSpot in a lot of the platforms that I use. So it is still a high contender as something we would at least have in our stack so that we can integrate with those ones that don't yet have a HubSpot. And then when HubSpot gets added later, you can always change it over. But for now, I do think MailChimp is still important to have because you'll see as we go through this stack, it still is something that's integrated through a lot of the pieces that I use personally. So now that we've talked a little bit about the marketing tech that I use, things like Canva for graphics, as well as Vimeo for recording content, and also MailChimp for lots of different things, including newsletters, we want to think about the next stage of our user journey. So we have the marketing piece. So they're going to be taken from whichever social media platform or other digital space that they reside in and go into your domain or your space, which is usually either a landing page or your main website. So what I like to use for my main website is Softer. This is what the editor or studio view looks like for Softer, but what it is basically a way that you can use this no-code tool to build things like websites, client portals, and other powerful applications with Airtable or Google Sheets as your backend data source, and then use this to build out that front end. So in my case, I have these different applications in here, but I have this example of a website that I created using Softer with lots of different stylization and this law firm. So the idea would be that you would have your marketing material do its job of calling the person to action to come to your website or a landing page and do something once they get here. So I love Softer because it also goes back to that piece where I was saying you want something that can scale with you. So maybe you start using it for a very basic website or very basic landing page, but you can later build this out to actually accommodate for client portals and use it for lots of different pieces, including robust applications if you'd like to, as well as different storefronts and so on. Another part of this puzzle is going to be your domain. So once we have our piece for our website, we'd want to link our own brand or domain to this. And what I like to use for that is Google Domains. So let me just go over there now. So I can show you what mine looks like. What I like about Google Domains is that the domains are very inexpensive and they're also very easy to manage the DNS settings, which is very important when it comes to linking that domain that you purchased to your different website pages. So in my case here, for example, you can see that you can just go into your domain, go into DNS, and you can just say manage custom records and create a new one if you'd like. So it's really easy to do it with Google Domains. What we also want is to make sure that when the person comes to our website and we have our domain and we have our Softer site, that we want the person to take an action that will give us their information that we can contact them in different ways in the future. So we'd want that information to feed into what's called a single source of truth or a customer relationship management software. So in my case, I love to use a tool called HubSpot for this because not only do they have a very robust platform that allows for lots of growth and scaling, it also has a very feature-full free plan. So even though they're giving it to you for free, you're still able to do quite a lot with that plan. And also they have a Google Chrome extension that allows you to track all of your or log all of your different emails that come into that particular account. So this is a really, really useful tool because it allows you to see everything in one place. And because of their app marketplace, you're also able to sync this data into different places and have other places sync into here. So one example of that is that you can use I'll just go to it quickly here. You can use the booking page that comes already with this particular account. So when they use this particular booking calendar, they're able to have their information automatically entered into as a new contact or notified by email, and they're notified that they've created a new calendar event with us, and it's automatically added to their calendar. So what this would look like from our website is we have a button that we say book a free consultation. This can take us to a new page or be opened into a modal where they're able to choose a time, put in their first name, their last name, and their email address, be automatically added into our single source of truth, and have all of these different automations right away. So this is really beneficial because it's all built in directly into your CRM without you having to do anything else. Now, I personally actually use a tool for my booking calendar called Calendly. So I love Calendly because it's really easy to use. There's lots of different features and options. They have tons of integrations, including HubSpot. There are a few things around the HubSpot integration that you need to note, which is that I believe you have to have a paid Calendly subscription for this, and you also need to have you don't need to have a paid HubSpot account, but you do need to have an admin level account for HubSpot. So this is just something that I had been using for a while before I kind of got into HubSpot, and that's kind of why I chose to stay with it for now and just have it integrate. So that's something to note when you're deciding which booking calendar you want to use. You'd also want to consider whether it has all the features that you want. So one thing, for example, with Calendly is that it has the ability to create routing if you have a paid plan, meaning that you can make it to where someone can go through a flow and different things will happen based on their answers. So that's really helpful if you want to be able to qualify your leads very quickly and upfront. You're also able to add a paywall so that someone can pay before they book with you. So there's lots of different options. You can also do the pay before booking using the CRM platform HubSpot as well. It just really comes down to what your preferences are. But I personally currently use Calendly, and then I have that integrate through the app marketplace with HubSpot to have all of those leads automatically added into HubSpot as well. But note that I have a paid Calendly plan. So that's a really good one. One thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about domains is that I also have a Google Workspace business starter. That's how I'm able to have Brittany@chromium.pro as my email address, for example, and I have my other team members who also have chromium.pro email addresses. So let's move on to the next one, which would be, so we have our CRM, we have our marketing design, Canva, we have our MailChimp, we have our Vimeo, we also have our CMS or our website with Softer, we have our domain with Google Domains, we have our workspace with the business starter plan for Google. We also have our CRM with our booking calendar, also a contact form, for example. So if you wanted to be able to have a contact form on your website like this, for example, then you can also do that using your CRM, HubSpot in this particular case. So that's really simple to do. And it also makes it to where you can have a centralized inbox where all of your different team members can manage the different conversations that come in through that form. So let's move on to the next piece, which would be, depending on what your area of practice is, or whether you're a lawyer or you have a different type of company, you might need something called a legal practice management software or a practice management software. In my case, when I was practicing law more traditionally, rather than focusing on legal tech, I did have a Clio Manage account, which was really helpful to keep track of all of my different matters that I was dealing with, all of my different clients. So the way that this works is that you can actually integrate this with HubSpot as well and have the data map over. So that anytime somebody comes in, let's say as a lead from your software website, they're automatically added into the HubSpot, but then they're also automatically synced into your Clio Manage account. So you can kind of make sure that all of that data transfers seamlessly through each of your different pieces of your tech stack. So this is one that I would highly recommend as well. Especially if you're a lawyer, it has the ability to also make it to where your clients can have a client portal with Clio Connect, and you can manage your different invoices and so on. And you can also track your time. Let's talk a little bit more about tracking time, which is that let's say you aren't a lawyer or you don't need this particular tool or you want to use something else. One free tool for tracking time is called Clockify, and I've been using it for many years. I actually have a paid account, which is very cheap. It's like $65 a year. And you can also do invoicing in here, but you would need like a separate way to collect your payments. So it depends on if you want a more all-in-one platform like this that integrates with HubSpot, or if you want to have a separate system where you track your time with the Clockify. Moving on to Gavel, which is the automation infrastructure platform that many lawyers use. So this is the one that I use to automate different documents, to create legal products. So one of the things that is really great about Gavel, and in this particular tech stack, the way that this is set up is, let's say you have someone come into your website from some other place, from your marketing efforts. You have them book a time with you using the link that we created with the HubSpot form or the HubSpot meeting link. Once they do that, their information is stored into HubSpot, which is automatically synced with Clio. And what happens is that Gavel actually has a Clio integration as well. So if you just had, for example, 2 questions, which is the matter and contact, for example, or even just one, just the matter is sufficient as well, then you'd be able to access lots of different information about this matter or a contact just from these 2 blocks, because it's actually going to pull all of the information and the fields that you have available within a contact. As long as they're filled out, you'll be able to insert those into the different sections. You're also able to use this completely independently of having a Clio account or not, which is that you can start from a blank workflow and build it out to have lots of different question types and blocks with lots of different logic. There's tons of different options for how you can do this. So I would definitely highly recommend that you use this along with, obviously a Word document, which has the Word add-in, as well as if you wanted to create PDFs. One thing that I like is called Sajda. Sajda is a way to create fillable PDFs online for free. And then you also have other different options, but I kind of like this one the best so far. But you can also create some if you have an Adobe Acrobat Reader account. So once you have this particular stack to this point, and you're considering where we are in the user journey, let's say that you would use this one for your client intake questionnaire, and you'd have your client create a client portal with this particular subdomain, for example, as well. That makes it to where they can benefit from data persistence. You're also able to use their information from each of the different workflows and push this data around using the data manager here, where let's say, for example, you needed to move information from workflow 1 into workflow 2, you can just look for workflow 2 and say push, and that's going to push that information through, and then you can just answer any other questions that need to be answered. Then if you wanted that information to be shared back and forth into different platforms, then you can use something called Zapier. So Zapier is a way to link different platforms together and perform different actions based on a particular trigger and different actions that you can choose. So we can say, for example, that I want you to have the trigger be that a Gavel workflow is completed, and then I want that information to trigger the action of something in Clio. So we want to say something like, when a workflow is completed, then I want you to, let's say, create a person contact or find a person contact, or I want you to create or find a matter or whatever else. Then you can do all of these different things within Zapier. Another tool I like to use is called Mailgun, and Mailgun allows you to link your Gavel account to your brand a little bit more by making it to where your emails that get auto sent from Gavel when you, let's say, finish a workflow and you have the documents sent to someone's email, you can have that customized. Instead of having Gavel here as the from name and email address, you can brand this to your own name if you are able to go through Mailgun and have the particular plan tier that you need to do this. So that's something else that you can take note of is Mailgun for customizations of emails. The next one we can talk about is Stripe and PayPal. So like I mentioned, one of the things you want to think about when you're picking different parts of your tech stack and the puzzle to put together for how you want your business to flow and be automated is that piece around what integrates with the most things. So what I've noticed is that Stripe and PayPal tend to be the highest ones that integrate with a lot of different platforms, leaning more towards Stripe because it's more what is used in some of the ones that I use, things like Software and Gavel, for example, as well as Thinkific later on as well. Moving on to what I would use when I'm doing, let's say, some market research or course planning, or also as a Gavel editor companion, is something called Notion. So Notion is another no-code tool that allows you to do lots of different things where you can literally start from a blank page and do tons of stuff. So if you just do a /, you'll see some of the different things that you're able to do, which is a bunch of stuff that also integrates with other tools we've already mentioned, as well as some internal stuff. One quick note that I just remembered is to make sure that if you're using Software, you also get Airtable. Airtable is awesome. It's so powerful for so many different things, but it is going to serve as that back end for your Software website if you want to add things like list details pages or list pages. So you don't have to have it to create a page, but if you wanted to populate this page with some information, let's say different blog posts or let's say a marketplace of some kind or a shop or whatever else, then you would need to have Airtable as your backend, but you would be able to do quite a lot with Software alone as well. So we're going to move on to what's going to be called your LMS or your learning management system. So this would be around the ability to scale. So eventually what you would like to do or what you should be aiming to do is make it to where your income is not fully tied only to your time. So one of the ways that you can do that is by changing the dynamic to be a one-to-many model. So one of the ways that you can do that is by creating courses based on your expertise. That can be something that you can use just to educate your clients as they go through a one-to-one service, or you can have it be a standalone product that is completely disconnected from your time. So I personally like to use Thinkific for my courses. I think it's a great platform, a great company that is very good at support. It's very good at their different plans. And they do have a fully free plan as well. So that makes it to where you're able to start and just get going. And then you're also able to have a community within this as well. So I think this is a really good one you can check out. It allows you to accept payments within here as well. You can have different certificates attached. So there should be some aspect to your tech stack that allows you to have a learning management system, whether it's this or Kajabi or Podia or whatever else. So one last thing was going to be around the newsletter piece that I mentioned. So as I was mentioning around this idea of making sure that everything integrates together, pay attention to when you're building things within your different systems, what the options are for the different integrations. So let's say, for example, that I have a form in this particular case. I need to tell Software where I want this particular information to go. So I have to choose a destination. And if you notice, one of the destinations could be a MailChimp, for example. And when you're putting these things together, you always want to be thinking about that piece, which is like, how can these different pieces fit together? And the reason why I'm going to mention MailChimp again is that also There is an app within Thinkific that also links to MailChimp as well. So you can have one tool that's serving as that kind of point of collection. And then if you wanted to have not MailChimp as your single source of truth, but rather HubSpot, you can then go to the app marketplace in HubSpot and link that to MailChimp. So have all of the information that comes in from MailChimp sync with the data in HubSpot. So everything would always be synced together in harmony, so that you have this really seamless, integrated, harmonized tech stack for the solopreneur. So this has been just a brief overview of some of the different techs that I really like to use as someone who has my own business and has an assistant, but I like to keep my business really, really lean. And I like to look for tools that have free tiers and free plans that I can start off, try out, see how they fit together before I start paying. So I hope this has been useful. I'm just going to quickly wrap this up by reviewing that. You can start to get some ideas of how to fit these pieces together by following along with the user's journey. So starting with, where would I need to find them? What graphics would I need to make? How can I use that with Canva, for example? Can I create content with Vimeo? How can I create a newsletter with MailChimp? What should my single source of truth be? Should that be HubSpot or something else? If you are, using this with your domain, I would suggest Google Domains. Going through that process of customizing your emails with Mailgun, for example, having that information flow into a practice management software if you are a lawyer, for example, and then having that feed into your automation infrastructure, which is like a Gavel. Having that be able to feed information back through a Zapier, and then also having a payment processor such as a Stripe or PayPal or both. Also having a place where you can store notes and use your second brain and use it as a companion editor with like a Notion. Also the ability to track your time. So in my case, I use Clockify. In the past, I used ClearManage with their internal tracking software, which is really helpful. Also around invoicing. So some of these tools will have some internal invoicing processes, but we also have the ability to send an invoice from Stripe as well. Then you're thinking about how you can scale. So now that you've given them some one-to-one, your end client some one-to-one services, and then you've also been able to maybe provide some standalone products, you want to think more and more about how you can diversify the different offerings that you can give them throughout their user journey with you, or their life cycle with you could say. And one of the ways that you can do that is with an LMS or a learning management system like a Thinkific. So with that, you're able to build those courses where you can sell those and somebody can purchase them without you having to do anything. And you just maintain those. And then finally, you nurture your different leads and your customers with your newsletter, which can be through a MailChimp, or you can automatically use that with your HubSpot accounts as well, as that's part of the CRM. So as I mentioned, I hope this was useful. I'm going to wrap us up with just a few announcements. If you have any questions, you can just reach out to me. I'll give you my information in a moment. And this has been an episode of the Wednesday Build. I also have a new episode of Code Word Hex out every Tuesday, along with a newsletter called the Tuesday Forecast. You can get certified in Document through cormeumacademy.com. And we also have courses in Software and Airtable, Go Full Page, and more to come. Speaking of Go Full Page, that is a Chrome extension that makes it to where you're able to take screenshots of an entire page seamlessly with lots of editing capabilities as well. So I have a certification course in that as well. You can also join our community, which is called Cormeum Global. And we also have a very active Slack group within the Gavel community if you'd like to join us there. So thank you so much for those of you that have been watching. We're going to be live next week on the 16th of August at 10 a.m. Pacific time. We're going to be talking about how I run a U.S. business while living abroad. Lessons learned from living in London. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or via email at brittany@cormeum.pro. For any inquiries related to Gavel's Law School program, you can email me at brittany@gavel.io. So that's all for this video, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.